Okay, there's a few concepts that I had just forgot to mention in the scripts video, like the basics of scripting video. So I just wanted to bring it up here. And the main one of that being this concept in Unity of prefabs. Now, if you have used Unreal before this, you might be familiar with an Unreal. We make an actor, and then once we make that actor, we can just drag them out into the level and make as many copies as we want. In Unity, however, we tend to compose our game objects directly in the level. I added this rubber duck, gave it a script, gave it another script, and this rubber duck now exists in this level. And if I wanted it in another level, right now, I would have to make a new level, add this rubber duck, and then give it the scripts again. Instead, in Unity, we can create what's known as a prefab. And all a prefab is a template. It's like a saved copy of this, any asset. It's very simple to save a prefab. I'm just going to make a folder for it. Call it prefab. And all I'm going to do is very simple. Just drag the rubber duck from the hierarchy into the prefab. And you can see it shows up as SM rubber duck. In parentheses now it says prefab asset. And what this means is now I can drag this prefab back into the level, create as many copies as I want. And it, is just the same as this initial rubber duck. It's just a copy, and it's a way of saving, our copies. So you can imagine when we make our player, for example, we're going to make them a prefab. And we can drag them out into different levels. We don't have to remake that player's component, build them up again in the inspector. We can just drag our player out to another level. Let's take a look at one more thing while we're at this, and that is the notion of instantiation. So the idea of creating game objects in code. Right now, all our game objects have been right-click, create empty, or we can add a 3D game object, but we've been adding game objects to the right click menu. Instead, let's do it in code. So to start, I am going to make a new script here in my scripts folder. And I'm going to call it object spawner. And once it compiles and loads up, there you go. It's our object spawner class. Okay, here we are going to use a function that exists within Unity called instantiate. INSTANCTIAT. But if you just type in ints, your IDE should hopefully autocomplete it. And to go with this, let us look at the Unity documentation for it. So all I did was I searched instantiate Unity on Google, and this is the first page it took me to. This is the Unity scripting documentation. This same link is available on your Blackboard, as it is here. Okay, so let's just take a look at this. You can see that under object.instantiate, there are multiple declarations. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different declarations. This is what's known as an override. So this object.instantiate function can take multiple sets of parameters. You can either pass it an object, you can pass it an object and also the transform as a parent, so you can parent it to something while you spawn it. You could pass an object, the parent, and if we're instantiating in world space or local space. And again, you can see there's a bunch of different overloads. So this is where looking at the documentation comes in handy, because you can see that there's different ways we can go about spawning things, and also now we can see what we need to spawn it. So I could actually just pass it the game object, the position, the rotation, and then if it has a parent or not. All right, let's go use this. So before I can even use instantiate, I need to give it a game object to spawn. And luckily, I had just made a prefab, so let's use that. So I'm going to make a variable of type game object, call it spawned object. And we are just going to make this a serialized field. So now when we go back to our editor, I'm going to delete this rubber duck from here. And instead, I'm going to make a new empty game object, just put it somewhere in the level, and let us give this the object spawner component that we just made. And you can see that spawned object here requires a game object. Right now it's not set to anything, but what we can do is we can come in here, go into our prefab folder, and drag this rubber duck. So now what's getting spawned, the spawned object, is this SM rubber duck. And I'm just going to rename this game object to spawn. And back in our void start, now we can use this instantiate function. So instantiate, let's just take a look at the, this is called a function signature. It's like the function name and then the variables it takes. So if I say function signature, that's what I mean. So I will use this last signature here. The object, the original object, the position, and the rotation, which I can pass. I'm sorry, I'll use the one above that because I'm not going to pass a parent. It's just going to be the original object, the position, and the rotation. So now going back to our script, instantiate original object, which is the spawned object, the position, and the rotation. I'm just going to use this game object's transform. So transform.position and transform.rotation. And now when I hit play, you can see that our spawner has spawned in a new duck. And we know this prefab is the prefab of that duck because it has the hello world script, it has the hello function script, and it's rotating. So it's like working with, you know, all the things that it has, it's working with it. So let's extend on this just a little bit. And I'm just going to show you a fun little, thing we can do in not just Unity, but it's kind of a pattern that we can use in any game language or in any programming language or program that has like a looping function. So we're going to make the simplest type of timer that we can, and we are going to have our duck spawn every 2 seconds on this timer. To do that, I'm going to make a float, and that is going to be called max time. And so this will be the amount of time that we want our timer to run for, right? And I'll just give it a variable of 2 because I said 2 seconds. But because this is something we should be able to customize, we'll also make it a serialized field. And then we need a variable to track what the current time on our timer is. So I'm just going to call that float current time. And this can start off at 0 because when we start the game, it's going to be 0. Now, in our update function, every frame to our current time, we are going to add the time.delta time. So what we're doing is we're taking the current time, how much ever time it took to render that previous frame, we're just adding it to it. And if ever our current time goes over our max time, whatever happens inside this if block is if the timer is done. Well, one thing that happens when the timer is done is we want the current time to be set to 0 again. So our timer basically restarts, it refreshes, right? And let's just, give it some fun behavior with this. So just like we did in the first video, I'm going to make my spawner move like we made the duck did originally. So I'm going to do transform.translate. We'll make it move on the forward vector. And we'll just multiply it by time.delta time. Now I could go ahead and give this like a customizable speed and stuff, but it's okay. And every time our timer is done, I want to instantiate this object. So instead of just typing the whole instantiate thing here, what I'm going to do is I am going to make a function called spawn me, or I should just call it spawn because that would make more sense. And we're going to copy this instantiate function into this. And the reason being that we would want to make a spawn function for our object spawner is so that, we might want to be able to call it from different places. It makes sense to just keep it as its own function, as it's a piece of like repeatable code that we want to reuse in different places. And that's exactly what I'm going to do here. I'm going to call spawn. And so now when we go back to our when we run the game, on start, current time will be 0, max time is 2. So current time is just, we're just going to keep adding up delta time to the current time. We're going to keep accumulating, right? And when our current time just passes the max time, we're going to spawn an object, we're going to set it back to 0 so it keeps going around here, and then it spawns it over and over again every 2 seconds. Let's see if this works. And there you go. You can see it spawning it, spawn it. 1, 2, spawn, 1, 2, spawn. And if I was to go to our scene, oops, it's an isometric. You can see that they're all kind of the same distance-ish away from them. I'm sure it's not super exact, this type of timer. So there is a small variance, but it's so slight we will not notice it. It is generally, spawning all 2 seconds apart from each other. And so this is just a way we could combine our current knowledge, what we know now, to create some interesting behavior, inside Unity already, just knowing the little that we do. And again, we're going to build up on this knowledge fairly quickly. So it's fun just to kind of play with it, see what we can do, come up with small concepts with our own, knowledge base, and try and do it. Anyway, that has just been a small add-on to that first video showing, prefabs and instantiation. We'll work on this stuff more in the future. I just thought it was important to know. Thank you guys for watching.